When a disaster strikes, what we see on the news is just chaos. Flashing lights, sirens, a rush of people. But behind all that, there's actually a highly structured system, a plan designed to save as many lives as possible. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and see how responders really manage the unimaginable.
Okay, I want you to picture this. You're the first one there. A bus, a tram, victims everywhere. The sounds, the smells, the sheer panic. It's completely overwhelming. So what's your very first move? Do you run to the person screaming the loudest? Do you start helping the person closest to you? Well, the answer is probably not what you think.
The first, and I mean the absolute most crucial step, isn't to treat a single patient. It's to take a deep breath, step back, and start imposing order on that chaos. Because without a system, all those good intentions, all that frantic energy, it just falls apart. Luckily, responders have a blueprint for this, a universal playbook for any major incident.
And that playbook is called the Incident Command System, or ICS. You can think of it like the operating system for an emergency. It doesn't matter if it's a small car crash or a massive earthquake. ICS gives everyone, fire, police, EMS, you name it, a common language and a clear structure so they're all working together, not against each other. So what's the point? Well, number one is obviously safety, keeping responders and the public safe. But right behind that is making sure everything runs efficiently. You just can't have individual units or responders going off and doing their own thing. That's called freelancing, and it's a recipe for disaster. It wastes time, it wastes resources. ICS makes sure everyone is on the exact same page. So how does a system like this not get totally bogged down and complicated? Well, it's built on a really smart principle called span of control. And the idea is simple. Any one manager should have, ideally, no more than 5 people reporting to them. Any more than that, and things start to get messy, communication breaks down, so as an incident gets bigger, the system just expands by adding more managers, keeping that 1-to-5 ratio. It's simple, but it's genius.
The whole system is built on these 5 pillars. First, you've got command. That's the person in charge of the whole show. Then, operations. They're the boots on the ground, the people doing the actual work. Planning is like the brain of the operation, trying to stay one step ahead. Logistics is the magic wand. They get everyone the stuff they need, whether it's more bandages or a bulldozer. And finally, finance, who tracks every single penny, which, trust me, is super important later on.
And that command role, it's incredibly flexible. For something simple, like a single car crash that one fire truck can handle, you'll have a single command. One person is in charge. But for something huge, like a chemical spill that involves fire, police, and public health, you need a unified command, where leaders from every single one of those agencies make decisions together. It's all about scaling the leadership to fit the crisis.
All right, so we've got the big picture management system down. Now let's zoom in on what might be the hardest, most gut-wrenching job on the entire scene. Once there's some order, the focus turns to the victims. But with dozens of patients and only so many hands, who gets help first? This is where we get into the science and the art of triage.
This is the guiding principle, and it's a tough one to swallow. Triage is a brutal kind of math born out of pure necessity. It's not about helping the person who's hurt the worst. It's about using your limited resources, your time, your people, your equipment, to save the largest number of lives possible. It means making unbelievably difficult choices, but it's a system that's been proven to work when everything is on the line.
So responders sort patients into 4 really simple categories, usually with colored tags. Red means immediate. These people are going to die without help right now. Yellow means delayed. They're seriously hurt, for sure, but they can wait a little bit. Green is for the minor injuries, what they call the walking wounded. And then there's black. That's the expectant category, for those who are either already deceased or whose injuries are so severe they just aren't survivable.
So that's the multi-million-dollar question, isn't it? When every single second counts, you don't have time for a deep medical exam. So how on earth does a responder make that life-or-death call, a red tag versus a black tag, in less than a minute? Well, they do it with a really fast, systematic assessment.
They use a system called START. That stands for Simple Triage and Rapid Treatment. It's a lightning-fast process. First thing, shout out. Anyone who can walk, get up and move to that safe area. Boom. Anyone who does that is automatically tagged green. For everyone left, you check 3 things. Respirations. Are they breathing? If not, they're tagged black. If they're breathing way too fast or too slow, they get a red tag. Next, pulse. If they don't have a good pulse in their wrist, that's another red tag. And finally, mental status. Can they follow a simple command like, squeeze my hand? If they can't, they're also red. Anyone who passes all those tests but couldn't walk is tagged yellow. It's an incredibly quick and effective way to find the most critical patients in a crowd.
Okay, as if a mass casualty incident wasn't already hard enough, let's add another layer. What happens when there's an invisible threat? A chemical spill, a toxic gas cloud. Now the scene itself is trying to kill you.
This changes the entire game. In a hazardous materials, or hazmat situation, the #1 priority is no longer patient care, it's responder safety. Period. Because if the rescuers go down, then nobody gets saved. The entire game plan has to shift to controlling the hazard first.
To do that, they split the scene into 3 zones. Think of them like concentric circles. You have the hot zone, that's ground zero, the contaminated area. Then, around that, is the warm zone. This is a buffer area where decontamination happens. And outside of that is the cold zone, which is a safe area where you'll find the command posts, the ambulances, and the treatment areas. You absolutely do not cross from one zone to another without following very strict rules.
And to go into those hotter zones, responders need personal protective equipment, PPE. And we're not just talking about a mask and some gloves here. Depending on the chemical, they might need a level A suit, which is basically a fully sealed up, airtight spacesuit for the most dangerous stuff out there. The levels go all the way down to D, which is just a regular work uniform. The rule is simple. The gear has to match the threat.
So, let's pull all these different threads together. You've got incident command, you have triage, you have these hazard control zones. These aren't just separate ideas. They're all interlocking pieces of a single, seamless, life-saving machine.
What looks like absolute, utter chaos from the outside is actually a very methodical process of grabbing chaos by the collar and forcing it into a controlled system. These frameworks don't make the horror of a disaster go away, but they give responders a way to think clearly and act decisively when the pressure is at its absolute peak.
So here's the bottom line. It all fits together like this. ICS organizes the people, triage prioritizes the patients, and the control zones secure the scene. People, patients, and place, each system handles one critical piece of a very, very complicated puzzle.
You know, we always call our first responders heroes, and they absolutely are. But their heroism is amplified by the power of a really well-designed system. So when you think about it, in the face of overwhelming chaos, maybe the greatest hero of all isn't one person. Maybe it's the plan itself. The decades of learning and experience that allow ordinary people to do truly extraordinary things and bring order and hope to the absolute worst days of our lives.